Well, okay, good evening, everyone, staff, council, and anybody who may be watching this recorded video. Welcome to the council meeting with Otonabee-South Monaghan of June the 6th. I will call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. We have quite a council meeting tonight. There's a lot of moving parts to it. And I would, in advance, I would ask for council and staff's assistance so that I can keep it coordinated and running efficiently. The first thing we need to do is to go into closed session in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act. And if I'd be looking for a motion from council to authorize us to do so. You see Councillor Howie, Deputy Mayor Clark has approved that motion. Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, I'll ask the clerk to. We will resume our open meeting following our closed session. A motion to come out of open session. Heather, do I need a motion to move into open session before we start?
No, Mayor Taylor, you already did that when you came
Okay.
out.
Okay, so coming out of closed session, council, I would like to entertain a motion that council hereby directs the clerk to update the council remuneration in accordance with the Gallagher report entitled Council Remuneration Market Review and recommended by the Personnel and Finance Committee. And further, that the remuneration charges would come into effect with the inauguration of the new council. Moved by Deputy Mayor Clark, seconded by Councillor Howie. Discussion on the motion? Call the vote. All in favor? The motion is carried. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, council, staff. Thank you, Jane. Okay, I need a motion now to adjourn the regular council meeting. Councillor Allen, Councillor Howie, all in favor? That's carried. All right, I'd like to call to order the public meeting, and let me call this up on my screen first. Okay, thank you. We'll now call to order our public meeting of June 6th. This is being held under Section 34 of the Planning Act. The meeting obviously is being held electronically. We have a lot of participants. Welcome to everyone. What I would ask everyone to please do is keep yourselves on mute unless or until you're going to speak. There is a hand function at the bottom of the screen where it says reactions. When it comes time to allow for public participation, if you would click on the raise hand icon, what that does is it puts a little hand on the top of the screen above you and it puts them in order. So I know everybody who would like to speak and the order in which that request has come forward. That really helps to keep the meeting running smoothly and organized. So the public meeting has been called to order. The first on our agenda tonight, in fact, the first two issues on our agenda tonight are both zoning bylaw amendments required as a condition of consent. Now I'm looking to see, do we have our planner? Is Ken Scully on the screen? I don't see him.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see him, but Mr. Randall is here too. So.
Kent Randall. I don't see Kent either. Oh, there he is. Okay. So Kent, are you prepared to take the lead on these particular applications?
Well, no.
Mayor Taylor?
Go ahead, Heather.
I think Ken is showing up though. So there he is.
That's a big help. I see the man we're looking for. Ken, just in the nick of time. So Ken, our public meeting has been called to order. We're going to start off with two applications that are zoning bylaw amendments as required as a condition of consent. My understanding is you'll be presenting these reports to council. And the first one is application Z04-22, if I'm not mistaken, Z06-22. Is Lafreniere?
Yes, that's correct, Mayor Taylor. I'll just start with the preamble if that's okay.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, thank you. The following is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment held under Section 34 of the Planning Act. If a person or public body that would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Otonabee-South Monaghan before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Notification for these applications were circulated to all required agencies and landowners within 120 meters of the subject property, at least 20 days prior to this meeting, in accordance with the applicable Planning Act regulations. So as mentioned, our first application is Z0422. This is a zoning bylaw amendment application that is required as a condition of consent for consent application B37-21, which proposes to create a vacant residential lot. The subject property is municipally addressed 1661 Division Road and is located southwest of the intersection at Division Road and Blizzard Line. The purpose of this application is to rezone the proposed severed parcel from the rural zone to the rural residential zone to meet the minimum required lot frontage and lot area of the proposed severed parcel. If there are any questions from council on that, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ken. Any questions to our planner? Any questions to Ken on this report? Seeing none. Okay, this is a public meeting. Is there anyone at this meeting today who wishes to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone at this meeting who would like to speak in opposition to the application or to seek clarification? Okay, let the minutes reflect there is no member of the public who spoke to the application. Is council prepared to make a decision at this time? Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor, I would like to make the recommendation following the 2 points, rezoning the severed and retained portion and move to the bylaw section of our meeting. So I am full support, receive and follow the recommendation as suggested.
Okay, perfect. You froze just a little bit there, Deputy Mayor. The motion was to receive the report, approve the recommendation with the 2 conditions and refer it to the bylaw section of our meeting.
Correct.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Powers is second that. Speaking motion. Anybody want to speak to the motion? Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Ken, the next zoning amendment for council to consider.
Sure. The next application is Z16-21. A zoning bylaw amendment is once again required as a condition of consent for application B7-21. This proposes to create a vacant residential lot as well. The subject property is located southwest of the intersection of German Line and Division Road and is municipally addressed 1125 Division Road. The purpose of this application is to rezone the proposed severed parcel from the rural zone to the rural residential zone to address the minimum lot area and lot frontage deficiencies resulting from the conditionally approved severance. If there are any questions from council on this one, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you very much again, Ken. Any questions from members of council to our planner on this report? Seeing no questions, I do have to ask, is there anyone who would wish to speak in support of the application? Anyone wish to speak in opposition to the application or to seek further clarification? Seeing none, the minutes will reflect nobody spoke to the application at the public meeting portion of this. I would ask council if they're prepared to make a motion. Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. That yes, I'd like to move that we receive and approve the motion as presented with the conditions also presented and moving it to the bylaw section.
And I see Deputy Mayor clerk's hand up. Bonnie, are you seconding that motion?
Correct.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. Any questions to the motion? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, council. For the viewers on the screen that might wonder, how did we move through two applications that both included public meetings so quickly? These are zoning bylaw amendments, which are required as a condition of consent or a condition of severance. We already have approved severance some time ago. This is merely I shouldn't call it a formality, but a process that the applicant must go through to comply with the condition that we put on the consent. So that's why it seems fairly quick, but it's also very straightforward. The applicants are merely doing what we asked them to do. So that's how come we got through that one. The next portion of our public meeting, we might not get through quite so quickly. And what I will ask, I'll start off with a little preamble here, and I'll explain to the people on the screen how this will work. Our planner will present his report to us. Council will ask our planner any questions. Then I will ask any members of the public if they'd like to speak in support of the application or in opposition to the application. When you do speak, you will be given 10 minutes, which is consistent with our procedural bylaw. If you have a presentation that you want to make to council, a written presentation or a slideshow, please provide that to the clerk so that she can include it in the minutes. When you do speak, please also provide your name and address so the clerk will have it for the records. Okay, if you have any questions, please, we'll try not to make this too onerous or too daunting. Don't be afraid to ask, but I do have some formalities and a procedure that must be followed, and I'll try to make sure it keeps flowing and coordinated as efficiently as we can. So, having said that, I'll now turn it over to our planner to discuss the zoning, proposed zoning amendment for Burnham Meadows.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Taylor. So the zoning bylaw amendment application Z13-20 proposes a rezone subject lands to permit a commercial self-storage operation with an ancillary retail use. The lands proposed to be rezoned are approximately 0.67 hectares with approximately 295 meters of frontage on Television Road. The subject property is located at the intersection of Television Road and Safe Harbor Way. The subject property is currently vacant and is located in the southwest portion of Burnham Meadows subdivision. The proposed development consists of 4 one-story buildings and 1 3-story building. The proposal has a gross floor area of 7,262 square meters and a total building footprint of 3,291 square meters. The subject property is designated hamlet within the township's official plan, which permits commercial and small-scale industrial land uses. Further, the subject property, the subject lands are currently zoned local commercial exception 11 holding zone and open space exception 3 zone. As the current zoning does not permit the proposed self-storage facility, it has been proposed that the subject lands are rezoned to the local commercial exception 14 holding zone in order to permit the proposed self-storage facility in the retail ancillary use. As the proposal is consistent and conforming to provincial policy, it conforms to the county and township official plan. Staff are recommending approval of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment at this time. Now, if there are any questions from council or the public, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can.
Let me take myself off mute. Thank you very much, Ken. I see Deputy Mayor Clark up. Bonnie, go ahead. Questions?
Yes, thank you through the mayor to Ken. This is in the southwest corner. It does have frontage on Television Road, but in reading the report, I understand that access to the facility will be internally off the Paul Rex Boulevard. I want to be assured of that. I know we have had safety concerns with the amount of traffic coming out onto Television Road. Can we be assured that that will not happen? There will be no access asked for in the future onto Television Road because of the safety aspect?
Yes, through you, Mayor Taylor, there's frontage of both Television Road and Safe Harbor Way, and vehicular access will be gained through Safe Harbor Way, not on Television Road, and that is shown on the site plan that the applicant has provided.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that assurance.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Ken, I'm just curious in terms of the sizing of the structures themselves. Not so much related to the single-story storage facilities, but rather the three-story storage facility that's being proposed. Does that still meet the threshold for the commercial zoning that is being applied here? I can appreciate a single story, but we're talking about a three-story building that's not going to be necessarily all that small potentially. I'm just curious the interpretation or what the feedback has been both with our own staff and consultations with others around a three-story commercial structure.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Taylor, I believe, now I do not have the bylaw in front of me, but I believe the site-specific zone does have permissions for height. Perhaps if the applicant's agent is here, he can touch on that, but the zoning, the draft amendment that we have brought for council to consider tonight, the height will be permitted through that rezoning application. Now, I'm not sure if anyone can assist me. I do not have the bylaw in front of me at this time.
I guess to follow up that question, were there any concerns brought forward that have been addressed or needed to be addressed as it relates to height?
I see Kent Randall's hand up. Perhaps Kent can answer this question for us. Go ahead, Kent.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Taylor. Through you. So the bylaw does have specific permission for the height that's listed in there. However, I should point out that the local commercial zone itself, the general zone, does permit the same height. So it's something that is contemplated in the zoning bylaw for that particular zone.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks, Ken. I just want to make sure that we're capturing that. Okay. The other question I did have, Ken, is just around the hold. What is the purpose of the hold on this particular zoning bylaw amendment?
So it's my understanding that the H holding symbol exists right now. And for that lift holding symbol, Greg may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe for that lift holding symbol will be lifted when the subdivision is registered. I don't have the most thorough history on that, and maybe Greg, if I'm incorrect, you could assist me here.
Mr. Mayor, I could provide some guidance, and I know that Mr. Randall could do the same thing. So that during the course of the draft plan of subdivision approval, and going back to when the original zoning was approved with the permitted uses, there was a holding provision put on those particular zones. And the holding provision is there, as Mr. Scullion has said, until the final site plan, final subdivision plan for phase 2-3 is registered, which they're in the process of doing. The M plan is registered, which they're in the process of doing. And as well, there has to be a site plan being approved, which shows all of the conditions of that particular site. And once those are approved, then the applicant can make application to remove the H symbol, so that we know that compliance with all of those particular issues have been received by the township.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Okay, Councillor Powers, your question been satisfied. Does any other member of council have a question for our planner based on his report? Seeing nothing, as I said, this is a public meeting, so this is now where we'll turn it over to the public for comments. First, I'll ask, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak in support of the application? And if you're going to speak, as I said earlier, please identify yourself to the clerk for the records. I see David Mackay there. Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is David Mackay. I'm a registered professional planner with MHBC, and I represent Safe Harbor Developments. As you're aware of these lands, and Heather, if you could please share my presentation, that would be great. So just to give some background on this community was planned comprehensively starting back in 2008. At that time, commercial development along Television Road was contemplated. And as council is no doubt aware, as well as many of the public, commercial development has slowed down. There's not as great a demand for retail commercial purposes. So our client was looking at this southerly portion at trying to fill it, and with a proposal that would fit within the context, the commercial context that it was planned for, as well as fit within the property. And so this is the rationale for the application before you tonight. So with that, I believe Heather is putting up my presentation. Don't see it quite yet.
I know Dave, the clerk, will be working on this. We had some difficulties with screen sharing earlier in our meeting, so we're hoping to have those technical problems solved.
Okay.
What?
Heather, do you want me to try sharing my screen?
David, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Mine's paused and it won't let me get out of it.
Okay, let me try. And okay, so, can you see my screen?
We can. That's great,
Okay,
Dave.
great. Thanks very much. So just to begin with, in terms of, just click on, sorry, wrong hand symbol. So as I'd mentioned by Ken, the site is located at the southwest corner of the property, as outlined in red. It's approximately, as you can see there on this map, is the initial phases of the subdivision and some of the housing that has been created to date. This site is approximately 200 meters to the closest residential lot that exists today on Paul Rex. As I had mentioned, it was originally planned for a commercial development along Television Road with internal accesses from Paul Rex Boulevard for the northerly block, commercial blocks outlined in that pinky color, and for the southerly block off of Safe Harbor Way, which is currently under construction today. So to the Deputy Mayor's question, access will be from the internal street, Safe Harbor Way, not Television Road. The city was very clear about what access points to Television Way were permitted, and those are the two that are the two subdivision roads coming into the property. Ken had mentioned a little bit about that the site there's a portion of the site that's zoned open space, and that relates to the stormwater management pond that also has been constructed just to the east of the property in question at this location here. And through the subdivision engineering review process, that stormwater management pond has been reduced in size, and therefore we're taking advantage of that to accommodate the proposal. In terms of why self-storage, so there's couple of different reasons. One is that there's been an increasing need and demand for self-storage space throughout Canada, including significant amounts within the Greater Toronto area and surrounding areas. I personally am doing a lot of self-storage facilities and throughout Ontario, and those include both in both traditional industrial areas where it used to be located and more rural areas. But now what we're seeing is that self-storage facility providers are looking to be located in commercial areas where there's high traffic areas in terms of the visibility, but also in proximity to their customer base. So that's why this is an ideal location for self-storage, in that it provides for that easy access from a major street, Television Road, in proximity to future retail, commercial development, as well as existing and planned residential, both within the city of Peterborough as well as within Burnham Meadows. As you can see, the anticipated growth is from approximately 2.5 square feet per capita in Canada to about 4 square feet per capita. So there's a tremendous growth happening over the next 20 years for self-storage facilities. The other component to this is that for self-storage facility, it is a low demand facility. It doesn't generate a lot of traffic. It doesn't generate any sewage capacity issues, which again is something that has been dealt with and planned for in this development. And from a municipal servicing perspective, a very low, if not any, issues in terms of parks or other municipal infrastructure. So in that regard, this proposal fits very well within an intensified use of the site, as shown on the landscape site plan that's on the screen. And the Councillor Powers asked about the height. The height is just over 10 meters within the 11-meter height limit that is permitted in the current zone. And that really was established as part of the review of the proposals to certainly have a character feel that was lower rise. There are many self-storage facilities, more urban locations that are 4 to 6 stories in height, for example, or combined with higher intensity condo development or office development. So this type of use can coexist in many different locations and in different kind of components. In terms of the site, it does have 2 accesses from Safe Harbor Way and in and out. That will be controlled through a gated system. They have the more traditional drive-up facilities that are the lower rise buildings that provides for some flexibility in terms of bringing in larger pieces of storage for customers they can bring it right up to their unit. Or the internal component, the 3-story, is more geared towards smaller household items and the like, air-conditioned, climate-controlled facility, very well appointed these days. There's a great demand, as I said, for this type of facility, and competition of quality of design and quality of service to their customers is increasing tremendously. In terms of the elevations, we've come up with some elevations that are quite well designed. They're articulated. They incorporate a variety of materials. They incorporate glazing to provide some animation to the streets, as you can see in these facilities. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have, or to respond to any public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You certainly kept it within the 10-minute time frame, and I appreciate that. Are there any questions to David Mackay, who is the planning consultant for the applicant, on his presentation? Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Thank you, and through the mayor, a couple of questions. So I'm still from the old school, so I've done a conversion here. 32.5 feet is the height of the facility. Now you mentioned, and please correct me, within 200 meters would be the closest residential lot. Is that correct?
That exists today. There will be future executive housing and retirement within that 200-meter area. I'm speaking to the current residences on Paul Rex.
Okay, thank you. And that was going to be my next question. Where is the closest existing? So it is 200 meters. Correct. The other question I would like you to address is parking. So the footprint of the building is covering what area, and what area are you providing for parking here? So we don't have, congestion if this is passed out onto the spill out on and impede any of our residential traffic.
So in terms of the lot coverage, it's just over 50% of the lot that is covered by building, which is fairly common for this type of facility. In terms of parking, we're providing 8 parking spaces, which is within the norm for self-storage. Self-storage is one of the lowest parking generators, and for those types of uses. It's a large space, but it doesn't generate a lot of parking demand. Based on experience that our client has experienced, as well as other operators, the actual use of the facility for those types of uses will be quite low, and as a result, the parking demand is quite low accordingly. With our submission, we did provide a parking and traffic analysis prepared by CGH transportation engineers, which looked at existing facilities of a similar nature and confirmed that the appropriateness of the parking rates provided in terms of the 8 parking spots for the size of facility.
If I may follow up, Mayor Taylor.
Go ahead.
I am not familiar, of course, and not an expert in this. It does seem to me to be low as far as the number of parking facilities. What is the number of storage units again in the facility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the exact number of storage units has not been confirmed at this point in time. What they have looked at is for parking demand is looked at other facilities in a suburban location, including in Etobicoke, North York, and several in Ottawa, and looking at the parking demand that's being experienced for those existing facilities, and looking at the parking usage rates, and then apply them to this proposal. So in terms of traffic, they're looking at in the peak PM hour, 6 in and 5 out per hour at the most, and similarly on a Saturday, 8 cars in and 9 cars out, based on that their ratios. And in terms of the parking, again, they have looked at it in terms of the size of the facility, and looked at it based on the ratios as compared to those other facilities. So even larger facilities, effectively the ratios for any facility are, you hit a maximum threshold of parking required, and that's what it is, whether it's 70,000 square feet as shown here, up to 200,000 square feet. The ratio for parking demand is effectively the same across all of those facilities. And that's where we came up with the 8 parking spots being provided on site.
If I may just make one more statement, I have a bit of difficulty with that, David, because if you have 20 units versus 10, logical thought process would be less traffic. So I certainly, that is something I would like to know, is how many is being considered within the building itself, because that to me would dictate what the amount of traffic. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I could just finish off, I will check to see if I can get that information in terms of the number of storage units. I would say though that, as I said, from experience demand and in terms of observed demand, for example, a facility that is 150,000 square feet generated 12 parking demand. We're half of that. So it really has all to do about the size of the facility versus the number of units, because those, it's not like a dwelling house or even a retail store where you have in and out all the time. It's very infrequent, and that's why the demand for parking is a lot lower than traditional facilities. With that, I will try to get that information for the Deputy Mayor while we're listening to other comments.
Thank you, David. And there may be some other questions or concerns that come from council, and we will expect you as a planning consultant to take those questions back and come up with answers, as well as, of course, whatever comes out of the public meeting from residents. We're going to still stick with council questions to the planning consultant, move into the public, and I see Councillor Power's hands up. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Just a follow-up question related to a comment that was made by the consultant. I'm just curious, David, you referenced the reduction in stormwater pond I'm curious, has that been confirmed and approved? Is this project that you're referring to in terms of the storage, is that dependent upon approval of that stormwater reduced size, or where are we at with that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that stormwater management site has been approved, is actually constructed, and by the township engineer as well as the conservation authority. So this is not dependent on that being approved or anything like that. It's already done. It happened about 2 years ago.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. All right, thanks so much.
Any other questions from members of council? David, I've got a couple. This 3-story proposed building, I expect will have to meet all AODA requirements and be fully accessible. So
That's correct, Mayor.
It'll have an elevator to the 3rd floor?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. And in the in your report, let me just find the page number here. It's page number 3, where it's really basically a site plan showing what this development will look like on full build out. To the north of the proposed storage facility, it looked like it's all commercial. Is that correct?
That's right. That land to the north of Safe Harbor Way is again part of the local commercial zone land that that was originally planned for this area.
To the east of the proposed site, and it's immediately adjacent to the stormwater management pond, is a row of I think that's residential units. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's a series of 30, I think it's 30 residential townhouses that back onto the front onto Safe Harbor Way and then back onto the wetland.
Okay, and so Dave, you've indicated that any existing residents will be at least 200 meters from this proposed site. How close will be the nearest resident from that new strip that we're talking about just east of the stormwater management pond? How close will that be?
Just I have some mapping, but I want to make sure it's correct. But it would be the width of that stormwater management pond. So if you just bear with me 1 second.
Okay.
Let me pull up the survey. So that would be approximately 100 meters. There's 86 meters from the edge of this property to where the Safe Harbor Way turns to the northeast. And then there's approximately another 15 meters of frontage based on the survey. So about 100 meters to that first townhouse lot fronting onto Safe Harbor Way, which is currently going through the approval process.
Thank you. Okay, now this is where we'll turn it over to members of the public. If you have if you have a presentation, please share it. If you have any questions or comments, council want to hear it. If you have any questions to the planning consultant, you can ask them, and David, you can either try to answer the questions now, or you may have to take them back with you and communicate with the residents at another time to provide answers to them, okay? So anybody at this meeting wishing to speak in support of the application? And I see Neil Fournier, your hand is up. Are you wanting to speak?
Not in support.
Okay, fine, thank you. Just want to clarify that. So there's no one else who wishes to speak in support of the application. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application or to seek more information? This is where, and if your hand goes up, I'll call you in the order at which they appear. Please state your name and address for the clerk. And if you have comments to council or questions to the planning consultant, now is the time to propose them. So Neil, you go ahead, your hand's up first.
Thanks, Mayor. Also, thank you for raising one of the questions I was going to ask as well about the new residential builds in terms of its proximity to this new commercial site.
So Neil, sorry.
Yes, I guess I'll say my name. So my name is Neil Fournier. I'm from 5 Richard Eaton Court. I'm really concerned about this this motion for this new change in the zoning bylaws. I believe it's a significant misrepresentation of the premise of our community as it was sort of conveyed to us by both the builders of our homes as well as the developers itself. Our area has a lot of families, a lot of children, and this is not what many of us would have assumed would have been placed as commercial properties within our actual location. The other thing, I have a question to the consultant, David, with respect to, can you provide specific concrete examples of similar sized communities as ours within a district similar to Otonabee and Peterborough that would have a similar sized commercial site like this, where there would be self-storage units? And I don't want to hear an example with respect to a large urban community like Etobicoke or Ottawa. I would like to know of specific examples within Peterborough or at Otonabee communities that have something similar to them being located within their residential areas.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to I think you heard, Neil, the question about how far distance it would be from the proposed areas. Relative to other facilities, they are traditionally have been in industrial and rural areas. And that is that change that I mentioned that's happening over time, both in urban areas, fairly large municipalities, not downtown Toronto per se, but in suburban locations. And traditionally, they have been located within, as I said, in industrial areas, because that's where the use is permitted as of right, and it's easy for them to get in. However, as I've said, those are changing. So there are locations in terms of specifics to Peterborough or others. I'd have to think through that and come back to you on those specifics. But certainly in other suburban locations, in the city of Vaughan, for example, in the city of Markham, there are locations that we have just had approvals where we are within across the street from residential in a suburban location, not urban, with 3-4 story facilities. In those two instances, there are proposals in Oakville that I'm working on today, which back onto or front onto, I guess, they are adjacent to residential areas as well. So there are those types of locations. In terms of specific to this size of community, in terms of Peterborough, I'd have to go back and take a look at that.
I mean, that's not really a very great example, because those are large communities, right?
The reality is, from a planning perspective, this use is fully compatible with residential uses adjacent to it, whether it's a small municipality or a large municipality. And in fact, it generates less traffic than the commercial that was originally planned for this site, and similar type of compatibility issues that may arise.
Right. And I guess I have a general question, I guess, to the mayor and to other constituents that are here. How many of you guys also have similar storage unit commercial residence buildings within proximity of less than 200 meters from your homes?
I'll attempt to answer that, Neil, but how I'd like this, I don't think any of us do. I mean, I live across the road from a farm. There isn't 10 homes within probably a quarter of a mile of me, and most of the rest of council are in similar situations. We live in a very rural settings. But how to keep this flowing along, if you have a series of questions, if you could simply ask them and give the planning consultant time to take the questions away and to prepare answers rather than trying to answer them all tonight, or we'll be here a very long time.
Sure, I would be interested from Mr. McCabe to receive examples of similar sized communities that have similar sized commercial resident buildings.
Okay, so David, you'll be taking notes of
Yes.
the questions and concerns that are raised, as you would at any other public meeting. And at the end of this, just so the public understands, council will have 3 choices. We can approve the application, we can deny the application, or we can defer the application and ask the planning consultant to meet with the residents and see if those concerns can be mitigated or addressed. And then with a subsequent report coming back to council explaining to us how that's being proposed. Okay, so that's our three options. I'm going to move now to Sarah Pike. Sarah, you have 10 minutes to make a presentation to council or the planning consultant if you like. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Sarah Pike, 3 Richard Easton Court. So just a few things. I wanted to clarify that we are a rural neighborhood. We are not compatible or comparable to any of those places, to Oakville, to Markham, to any of those places. And I think the appeal for a lot of young families was moving out to a small community where there are several young children and everybody knows who everybody is. And so a vehicle in the area that doesn't belong stands out like a sore thumb here. And I think for a lot of us, that was the appeal. So I just want to really highlight that is why we chose to live here and we purchased our homes. So it's really not the same as comparing it to a neighborhood in a larger city, or else we probably would have bought there and consciously made the decision not to. The other thing is I just want to point out, because I do feel it's a little bit misleading, the Safe Harbor road, the only way to get on that road, if you're not using Television Road, is through Paul Rex Boulevard, which means the only entrance for anybody who lives in this subdivision, the only entrance or exit will then be shared with people, which I assume will be large moving trucks that are often used for storage facilities. So again, that's a very narrow entranceway. It's already busy enough. There's already been several near miss or accidents happen at that intersection. And I think adding in, increased level of cars, and I know the quote was 6 to 8 per hour, but when you factor in that many of those are likely larger trucks, I do think it poses a safety risk. And it is a community with small children. There is no park, as you know, there's nowhere for them to play. So they are out on their bikes, they are out walking, families are walking. It's just an increase in traffic in an area that that is supposed to be rural, and that was the intent of it. And I also think it was incredibly misleading to sell this area in one way and to frame it a certain way to people, only to turn around and make it something that really is absolutely not a representation of a small rural community. And then I think the other thing is I would be interested in knowing what the statistics of petty crime rate is around storage facilities of that size. So what do the local police force say, or what do other neighborhoods similar? And I know that's difficult since there's been nothing like this to compare it to, because again, we're not compared to Oakville or Markham, but what does that look like in terms of sort of petty crimes in and around those storage facilities? That's all.
Let me take myself off mute. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. David has taken down your questions and concerns. I will offer some clarification here to start with, and that is that the development shows a second entrance off of Television Road immediately beside or immediately north of the proposed location of the storage units, and it will allow access to the southern portion of this development. So I expect that's where the traffic going into the southern portion will be generated. David, you'll take those concerns with you, and we'll.
Yes, and I'll perhaps respond, Mayor, after all the comments and see if I can provide some clarity to the residents.
That would be appreciated. Okay, we'll go now to Perun, if I'm saying that correctly. Perun, go ahead.
Yes, it's Perrin.
Perrin, okay.
My name is Margot Perrin, and I'm a resident at 26 Veterans Road. And my background, I have a master's degree with a specialty in planning and policy. I have 2 comments, concerns. One, I would like to see a test of planning decisions being, how does this proposal contribute to fostering a strong, healthy community? And the concern specifically with that in looking at the planning initiative towards strong, healthy communities is their walkable ability to go to grocery stores. We currently have grocery stores only within driving distance of this development. Is there open space, parkland? Are there alternative modes of transportation, safe streets for walking and cycling? The next concern that I would like to address is foresight in planning, taking into account the proximity of this development to the city of Peterborough. We are currently on city of Peterborough water and sewage and stormwater. And I'm looking at, notwithstanding the current slowdown in the demand for commercial development, which has led to this small scale industrial proposal, that I would say that in Foresight, people are not going to stop using grocery stores. They're not going to stop using parkland. And in fact, I've been very closely involved for the past 2 decades in the citizen concerns in planning for the city of Peterborough. And if you look at the historical map of the annexation of the city of Peterborough, we're right in the target area for being annexed into the city of Peterborough within a decade or 2, I would imagine. And the concerns that have arisen over the past 2 decades in Peterborough are for the walkable city now. And for also, that means walking to grocery stores. It also means parklands and open space and trails. It also means transportation alternatives to the car, subdivision, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those comments are duly noted. We'll go now to Crystal.
Good evening. Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, Crystal. Just need
Yeah.
your full name and address. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Crystal Melninchuk. I live at 14 William Campbell Road in the subdivision. So my concerns are, we moved here for the same reason as the earlier lady had mentioned, that it is a small community. Right now, I believe there's only about 164 homes in here with I guess they have the road ready to build. So I think it's only going to be a total of just under 200 homes, which is small. To me, that is not at all a large community of 1,400 homes. It doesn't feel like the right place to have such a storage unit. My concerns are, once the other side is developed and finished, there are now only 2 ways in and out of this entire subdivision. We already have several people who turn and burn all day long. I'm at the bottom of a court. So there's people coming in who are buying in other subdivisions, coming here to see what the homes are looking like. So we have that traffic, plus the people who are coming to purchase the homes that are going up for sale in here. And then you add commercial into that, you're going to have that traffic as well. People are not going to come in, use the facility and hop out. That's not going to happen. We left a big city where they were in the midst of building one of these buildings that backed on to the homes in front of us. They are ugly. They're huge. They are noisy. My safety thing is, Television Road on a good day is almost impossible to get out of. This entrance is going to be at the top of a hill where there's a blind exit. So are there plans to put a street light? Are there plans for any of that? There's school buses in and out of there all day long as well, with young children who want to play. I feel misrepresented as far as how this development was sold to us, that it's a small community. There's going to be a few little plazas, as I was told. The convenience store. Okay, I can handle a convenience store. I can't handle a multi-unit storage facility. Yeah, okay, the facade of it looks great. It's still not an ideal thing to have there. Also, I want to touch on, I feel for the safety part too with petty crime, we already have a very high incident report happening here. It happens on a Tuesday night at 3 a.m. There are people coming around and breaking into cars. It's a constant thing. So is that going to bring more of that? Like, are they coming to hit up that storage facility? What is security going to be? That's about it for me. That's all I got.
Thank you
Everything
very
else,
much.
I follow in with everybody else with everything else as well. So
Thank you, Crystal.
thanks.
Okay. Next speaker is Paul and Lisa Evans. Go ahead, Paul and Lisa.
Hi there, my name is Lisa Evans and my husband and I live at 29 Veterans Road. And again, like some of the other residents have said, we bought into this area knowing that it would be a quiet residential area in the country. We didn't buy into an industrial strip. If we would have bought into an industrial strip, we would have picked somewhere else, not Burnham Meadows. So we feel very misrepresented. Again, like Crystal said, we thought, yeah, commercial development, it'll be a plaza, that'll be convenient. Some of the concerns that I raise is self-storage units. I'm curious about the quality of life for our area. I think there will be a lot of increased traffic. I'm picturing heavy trucks coming in, headlights in the night, noise that includes honking, reverse beeping, lift motors, idlings of engines, extra fumes in the area, dumping of unwanted items and any security risks. And that's been brought up as well too. Will this be inviting more crime and break-ins to our area? Security gates aren't that really that big of a deal to be breaking into. Also, has there been a traffic study done for this area that would include the impact of this facility? Because as it was mentioned, we do have a lot of heavy traffic. We have cottage traffic that uses Television Road to access cottages north of us, local traffic, as well as Peterborough traffic. It's becoming quite a congested area as well. And my other point is that how will this affect our property values for our area? They're unsightly. They're not something that looks inviting or attractive to be coming into a beautiful residential area. So that's one thing I'd like to see is some type of analysis on the effect of property values. And I think that's about all I had to say.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Your points have been duly noted. We'll go now to Jennifer. Jennifer, you're on mute. And it happens to everybody.
We good? You hear me?
That's better. Yep.
Sorry, thank you. Jennifer Dunford. I'm at 21 Richard Eason. I have to reiterate the same thing as what Neil and Sarah and Crystal have said. I mean, we were one of the first people in this subdivision, and we were sold on a certain type of community, and I have seen it change many, many times over again from the developer. And now the latest change is the storage unit. And I find that, like everyone else, it doesn't have its place here. There are things that do fit a subdivision if you're going to have an industrial area, which is convenience stores, a small little bistro restaurant or whatnot, maybe a dentist, things that make sense. A storage unit does not fit the type of area that comes here, especially since it's not fit. I mean, a lot of storage units that I see, they start out with just having stuff internally because it's all inside the storage units, but eventually all of a sudden you see them accepting stuff to being stored outside, like cars and boats and RVs and so on and so on. The probabilities are very high that it will at some point, the storage will find itself outside, which will also now coming into this beautiful subdivision. You see this that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. There are times and places for certain things, and a subdivision is not, especially in a community that's small like this, it doesn't fit, and it doesn't have its place. I really don't think, I think it's not, yeah, it shouldn't. We were sold on something specific from Safe Harbor and also from the builder and also from the town, and we are currently not getting it, especially with this new bylaw amendment to have the storage unit.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Moving to Brian and Leanne McCallum.
Hi there. My name is Brian McCallum and my wife Leanne. We're at 27 Veterans Road. And I, along with everybody else, feel that we have definitely been misled with moving into the community. I mean, we all understood that there was going to be some commercial development. Some small stores, convenience, a small convenience store, that type of thing. To put a facility of this size into a residential area, to me, is crazy. The traffic flow, I mean, you have some numbers that you're talking about, eight vehicles an hour, but you get into the end of the month when people are moving around, I can see those numbers spiking substantially. Getting in and out of this development on a weekend, a long weekend, at the end of a work day, it's tough enough as it is. Now, these facilities also, they're definitely going to generate a lot of noise in the area. the perimeter lighting that's going to be set up for that type of facility is going to be, to me, that's going to be shining in all of those townhomes along the street, which I think is going to be very irritating to a lot of people. And I truly think it's going to have an impact on our property values. People are looking to move into quaint little establishments like this. And with that type of a facility, it's definitely going to do some damage. So I am 100% against something like this. I think it's a wrong choice for this development, and hopefully we can put a stop to this. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Brian. And just to Jennifer and Crystal, just so I don't get confused, could you please take your hands down? I believe that you have already spoken. That would help me out a lot. Thank you very much. Okay, who we got next? We've got Trina Stewart next. Go ahead, Trina. Trina, you're on mute. Can you hear us? Sometimes if you just hold the space bar down, that'll take you off mute. Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll give Trina a minute to try to figure this out, and we'll move over to Angela H. Go ahead, Angela.
Hi there. My name is Angela Hale. I live at 31 Veterans Road. I simply just wanted to say and be on record to support everything that my fellow neighbors have said. I'm in complete agreement. When we decided to move here, an industrial-like setting was not something that I was led to believe would happen. And ultimately, I think if there's different zoning laws for commercial versus something that's in a storage unit, they're different for a reason. So I just want again to say that I support everything that my neighbors have said, and I'm against this change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Moving down now, I think next is Lorna Ann Lalagadek. Did I say that correctly? Go ahead, Lorna Ann.
Mr. Mayor and fellow residents, I live at 31 Paul Ricks Boulevard. My name is Lorna Ann Lalagadek. We're the first townhome on Paul Ricks Boulevard. When my husband fell in love with the area, I was very hesitant because I was very nervous about the retail area that was going to go up on Television Road. But when we saw the plans and we figured, okay, maybe a little coffee shop, maybe a little bistro, as one of my fellow neighbors mentioned, I figured I could live with that. But now I'm kind of nervous because you're proposing these very ugly storage units. I worry about the safety. There's approximately 17 children between the beginning of Television Road up to Richard Eason. Just in the short span, there's about 17 children, including my 2 grandchildren. And the speeding and the racing and the traffic up this road is absolutely intolerable. And now I'm concerned that we're going to have people, coming into the storage area, but then ending up coming into our neighborhood. And that's not really what we signed up for. It's absolutely not what we signed up for. So my husband and I are very much against it. We're very concerned it's going to affect the resale of our property. We never thought of resale because we're really, really happy with where we're living, but we're suddenly feeling very insecure and wondering if maybe we need to get out and get our money before this horrible monster of a building goes up. So I totally support my neighbors, and my husband and I are very much against it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Lorna Ann. Okay, going back to Trina. Trina, did you, there you are, you're off mute.
Hi, yes, sorry, it kicked me out. My name is Trina Stewart. I live at 9 William Campbell. I do agree with everyone else, but in addition to what everyone is saying about the safety concerns, we have no sidewalks. So I have 2 children, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we are out for walks multiple times a day. It's already unsafe as it is. And if you were to add in the storage unit, well, then suddenly Paul Rex becomes busier with people avoiding all of the moving trucks and whatever's going on the other side, and the traffic will increase on our side. Also, all of the children that will be moving into all of the new units on the other side. So without sidewalks, I mean, adding that in is, for me, a major safety concern. And that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Trina.
Thank you.
And Jennifer, I notice your hand is still up. Did you have an additional comment you wanted to make? Okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Jason Dunford, 21 Richard Easton Court. Again, when we first moved in, we were sold a bale of goods, whatever you want to call it, into a beautiful development. 6 years down the road, we were told like this development was supposed to be finished and complete, and we're still in phase 1B. This developer doesn't know what they're doing, and they're doing half-assed stuff, making excuses after excuses. Do you really think they're actually going to build what they say they're going to build? I don't think so. Anyway, that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in opposition of the application? I think we've covered just about everyone. We certainly want to make sure everybody feels they've been given the opportunity. And I'm not seeing any other hands. So David, what I'm going to recommend, rather than you trying to address all of these concerns or most of them tonight, I'm going to recommend that you take them all back. You try to figure out how best you can address them, if at all. I would suggest that you meet with some of these residents, if not all of them, and talk about their concerns, see what can be done. And then subsequently, you'll have to come back to council, and we may need a second public meeting on this application sometime in the future. But I think, David, certainly I'll allow you to make a couple of comments here if you like, but to try to have you go through the whole list of concerns that have been brought forward tonight and address them. We'll be here till midnight, and I really don't think that that's going to be fair. So I've got a couple more hands go up. I've got to be careful. I got to keep this running smoothly, folks, and let's let David respond, and then I've got a couple of council members, and we will have to move on. Go ahead, David.
Yes, and I believe there is, well, it looks like Jen and Joe, I don't know if they're a resident, and Paul and Lisa Evans as well, that if they're residents, Mayor, if you want to hear from them first. Could be wrong if they're residents.
Paul and Lisa, we already did. Jen and Joe is a new name. Jen and Joe, can you hear me?
You there?
Yep, go ahead.
Joe Waters, we live at 15 William Campbell. Much like everyone else has said, we were sold this fairy tale that there's going to be some light commercial stuff. We're talking about industrial stuff here. I've been in the construction industry for 25 years. We do sites from Peterborough all the way to Oakville. Anytime one of these things goes up beside a subdivision, we're talking about places like you said, Markham, Oakville. These are places that have no land left. They have to put these things in places like that. There's lots of land here. Nobody wants it here. It's a total eyesore. Property value, yeah, might be affected. Find another piece of industrial land to put this kind of stuff. Like, it's absolutely absurd. Like, everyone is saying a convenience store, a dentist's office, you know, okay, that's fine. But this, like, it doesn't make any sense. It's absolutely absurd. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Joe. There is a lady on the screen, and there's no name. It just says iPad. And I know that's not your name. So iPad, if you could identify yourself, please, and provide your address. Go ahead. Yeah, you're muted. Mute. You're on mute.
There we go. My name is Louise Taylor, 13 Richard Easton Court. I just have a little thing to add to this. The gentleman in the planning keeps saying that we are zone hamlet. Well, I can't believe that you can compare a hamlet to Scarborough, Etobicoke, Toronto. You are developing this like Toronto, but yet you're zoning us as a hamlet. This doesn't work both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to do things as a hamlet or do things as a city, because having a storage unit in a hamlet, you've never seen that. If you go into little hamlet around here, you'll never see a storage area 3-story high. And furthermore, Safe Harbor is building this. All their equipment, their truck, their maintenance, all their building things are all going to be there. No, thank you. I do not want that. Like everybody has said, we have been given a hefty bill of sale that is amounting to nothing, because nothing is being done the way it was supposed to be done. From Safe Harbor to Picture Home to Otonabee. Otonabee allowed things that makes no sense in a hamlet. Makes a whole lot of sense in Toronto, in Scarborough, in Vaughan, or any other places, but doesn't make sense in a hamlet and Burning Meadows. That's my take on that.
Okay, thank you. I've got two council members that speak, but before they do, I want to clear something up.
But I would like, excuse me, I would
Okay.
recommend that the planning representative, Dave, his name is,
Correct.
it would be a great thing if he could meet with the residents of Burning Meadows. We all have our 2 cents worth to put with that developing.
And I agree with you. And if you heard me just before when we got started here, that was a recommendation I was making, that the planning consultant should meet with the residents. But I want to offer some clarification to everyone here so they understand. When a developer owns a piece of property and it is zoned for a certain permitted uses, that developer, no matter who they are entirely within their rights to apply for a zoning amendment, so they can seek a change to the limitations of the zone that it's there. It's the township did not initiate this. The township is not leading this planning application. The township merely has to receive it, and that's what we're doing. The council will make the decision on whether this zoning amendment will be approved or not. But the township was not part of drafting it or encouraging it. Okay, I think that comment was made earlier, and I want to clear that up. Township does not take the lead on planning applications. We simply receive them. So I'm going to move over now to Deputy Mayor. Bonnie, you have a comment or a question?
Yes, and through the mayor, thank you. And certainly we've heard a lot here of concerns around this. A couple of things with the storage unit to fellow councillors. This will be a 24/7 operation, I'm assuming, for hours of operation. A lot of lighting involved here. Sidewalk issue certainly is a concern with that traffic. This does not prelude the developer from, as the mayor has said, they can ask for an amendment to commercial, but they can also ask an amendment to consider this as residential as well. We know that pressures are on for housing. That is certainly a key thing in our area. And so that is something that the developer could consider in looking at this commercial and possibly turning it back into a residential application. So just putting that out there.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Kind of to follow along with Deputy Mayor Clark, I was going to ask David around hours of operation and if storage units are operated outside of the 24/7 model, and if there is operation of storage units, and if he could bring that back.
Sorry, Mark, you're really fading out there.
Sorry. Just asking David to bring back the 24-hour or 24/7 operation, and if there's models of storage units that don't operate under that structure. And also following along with Deputy Mayor Clark, with regard to the opportunity to look for further housing development, as obviously our area is stretched and needs that development as well. So I'll leave that with David. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Allen. There's one hand left, Shelley, and I don't.
Did you want to make a comment?
Sorry?
Yes, hi there. This is Howard, actually. Howard and Shelley at 15 Richard Easton Court. Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that I agree with so far all of the comments that have been made by residents of the burning meadows.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. I did want to add just a couple of comments. As someone who lives on the same road as one of these particular similar type structures today, I can speak to some of the concerns that have been raised by residents. I don't live as close as some of these houses are proposed to be. But certainly some of the concerns that have been raised are certainly answers that we probably should get to and get answers from the developer on and the consultant before we move forward. So I certainly would agree with us moving forward, deferring any action, any decision other than seeking clarity from all the questions we've received tonight.
Okay, thank you. We do need to move on, Deputy Mayor. Have you got a second comment you need to make?
Not a second comment. I would move the motion that we receive, that the planner meet with the residents around their concerns and then bring that back to council. And I'll look through the mayor. Then is there a need for a second public meeting around this? So I think we need to defer this and get some of these questions answered. So I would make that motion.
Okay, so the motion, if I'm to be clear for the rest of council, the motion is to defer the application, to direct the planning consultant to meet with the residents, to try to address some of these concerns, to bring a subsequent report back to council on this, and to potentially schedule a second public meeting if council deems it to be necessary. Is that correct?
That's exactly it. Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
You're welcome. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Allen is going to second it. Now, David, I'm sorry, I've got a motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded. Does any member of council want to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. Favor. That motion is carried. Okay, residents, I hope.
Thank you very much.
I hope you followed the process there that we must follow. And we have asked the consultant to meet with you to address your concerns. I hope you feel you've been heard. I can assure you have been. And we'll take it. We're going to put the ball back now into the planner in the applicant's court and let them try to decide how to deal with some of the issues that you've raised tonight. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. That was a lengthy and involved public meeting, but you know what? I want to thank all the participants for keeping it civil, for keeping it polite. You raised your concerns, but you didn't do it in a fashion that was upsetting or insulting to anybody. I want to thank you for that, because I have been in public meetings where it not necessarily goes that way. So with that, council, I would like a motion to adjourn the public meeting. Councillor Howie and Councillor Allen, all in favor? That is carried. I'd like a motion now to resume the regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Powers, all in favor? Carried. Okay, let me go back to our regular council meeting screen. And I think before we go any further, we could like it all stand about a 2-minute break. So let's reconvene 7:21. Let's reconvene back at 7:24. I'll give you 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We will resume our regular public meeting that has already been called to order after a short break. First on the agenda is our land recognition, and it is Councillor Powers' turn to recite this. I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. I had the wrong agenda up. We would like to begin by acknowledging the township of Otonabee-South Monaghan is located on the traditional territory of the Michi-Sagi peoples. These are Treaty 20 and Williams Treaties lands. We encourage everyone to educate themselves on the details of these documents and the influence of First Nations in Canada's history. The Council of Otonabee-South Monaghan recognize these contributions and commit to actions which demonstrate respect for the environment and, in keeping with the First Nations tradition, reflects the security of the next 7 generations.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Powers. Okay, moving down now to announcements and council and staff. I have quite a few actually, and I know the meeting is running on, but it's important, I think, that we acknowledge this. First of all, I would really like to thank Public Works and Fire Department staff for responding on short notice, giving up their long weekend plans, and for jumping into the massive cleanup efforts after the May 21st storm. We should be proud of the fact that we had all roads in the township that were safe to travel on cleared for at least one lane of traffic within 24 hours of that storm event. And I think, quite frankly, we may be the only township in the county that can make that claim. Although we don't encourage it, and I want to be careful how I frame this, although we don't encourage it, we also want to thank the many residents who contributed to the cleanup and the clearing of the roads. I also want to thank Hydro One and all the hydro crews from far and wide who restored power to our township relatively quickly, given the extent of the damage. Now, I did send an email to Hydro One thanking them formally on behalf of council and our residents for the massive effort that they put forth. It was a monumental task. I was too late to get that email into the clerk to be included on this agenda, so it will be included in our next council agenda, just under information only. But certainly I thought Hydro One deserved our thanks for what they did. We should congratulate the provincial conservative government, progressive conservative government, and David Piccini for the success in the June 2nd election. I'd like to thank our entire volunteer fire department for the professionalism and expertise demonstrated during the large barn fire in our township on June 4th. It was a big fire. Our crews did their job exactly how they've been trained to do, and they were able to save buildings that were beside this massive fire. And I talked to the property owner, as a matter of fact, earlier today, and he had nothing but compliments to say about our volunteer fire department. And last but not least, I think it's important that we need to confirm that Otonabee, this is because of a number of calls through to staff, through to me, and perhaps other councillors. Otonabee-South Monaghan did not participate in the aerial spraying program for gypsy moss that has taken place over Hiawatha First Nations. Hiawatha First Nations, that was their program. They paid for it. They arranged it. They did send notice to some residents who were close by, but the notice was short because they didn't get much notice when the spraying would begin. But contrary to some rumors out there, Otonabee-South Monaghan did not participate in that spraying program in any way, shape, or form. Just wanted to clear that up. So that's all I have from announcements. Number 5, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest from any members of council among the issues before us tonight? Seeing none. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Seeing none again, then I'd like a motion, please, that we adopt this agenda for tonight's meeting. Councillor Howie, Councillor Allen, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, you have 3 sets of minutes. You've got the May 2nd regular council meeting minutes, the May 16th public meeting, and the May 16th regular council meeting. Any questions or concerns on those minutes? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve them, please? Councillor Powers, Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving down now the agenda to 13.1, disconnecting from work policy. It's a requirement of all municipalities. And I think, Greg, you're going to take the lead on this one.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it is a requirement for all workplaces in Ontario, which municipalities are a part of this. It's a fairly straightforward report. So we are required under Bill 27 to have a policy. We engaged our human resources solicitor, which is Siskins LLP, and they drafted this particular policy. The requirement of Bill 27 is that you must have a policy, but it doesn't tell you what should be contained within the policy. And I know Mayor Taylor and Deputy Mayor Clark, you guys dealt with this at the county. And if there's any questions, I would certainly entertain those from council.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions to our CAO on this new policy? As he said, it's a requirement. If not, I'd entertain a motion that we receive the report and approve the new disconnecting from work policy. You see Councillor Allen will make that motion, and Councillor Howie will second it. Questions on the motion? Sorry, Deputy Mayor, is your hand up as a question?
No, it was just up to either pass it or be the seconder. And my only comment is this is provincial legislation, so we basically are rubber stamping it and move on. We are complied to do so.
Very good. So the motion's been duly passed and seconded. Call the vote. All in favor? That is passed. Thank you. We now have another policy. Okay, moving down now to consent applications, and Ken Scullion is still part of the meeting. Thank you, Ken, for staying on. Consent application B19-22. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Consent application B-19-22. The purpose of this application is to create a vacant residential lot. The land's addressed 2137 Drummond Line, which is located southeast of the intersection of Forest Road and Drummond Line. The proposed severed lot is approximately 0.4 hectares and approximately 56 meters of frontage along Forest Road. The proposed retained lands have a lot area of approximately 39 hectares and approximately 606 meters of frontage on Drummond Line. The proposed severed lands are currently vacant. The proposed retained lands currently have a single detached dwelling, barn, accessory structures, and agricultural uses existing on them. As the proposed severed lot and the retained lot are located within 120 meters of a natural heritage feature, a natural heritage evaluation was requested and has been submitted by the applicant. According to the submitting report, the proposed severance will not negatively affect natural features on the subject lands if the provided mitigative recommendations are followed. Orca will be implementing conditions of the approval to ensure that the recommendations are adhered to, the mitigative recommendations are adhered to. That's it for that application. If there are any questions from council, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from members of council to Mr. Scullion? Seeing no questions, are you prepared to make a decision? Councillor Howie, go ahead, Ken.
Approve the application subject to the conditions.
Okay, the motion is to approve the application subject to 3 conditions listed. Councillor Allen is second on that. Questions to the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you very much. Okay, Ken, moving down to the next one, B46.
Okay, B-46-22. The purpose of this application is to provide additional lot area and frontage to an existing vacant lot with frontage along Crowley Line and Assumption Road. The civic address of the benefiting lands is 2117 Assumption Road. The retained lands have no civic address. The benefiting lands are approximately 0.14 hectares with 45 meters of frontage on Assumption Road and 60 meters of frontage on Crowley Line. The proposed lands to be added onto the benefiting lands are approximately 0.76 hectares with 30 meters of frontage along Crowley Line. The proposed lot addition will have the effect of creating a buildable lot, as the existing lot cannot host a dwelling given the inadequate lot area of the parcel. The retained lands are approximately 38.4 hectares with approximately 612 meters of frontage on Assumption Road and approximately 510 meters of frontage along Crowley Line. There is currently a single detached home, a barn, and agricultural uses existing on the retained lot. The combined lot, or the product of the lot addition, will have 0.9 hectares in lot area and approximately 91 meters of frontage on Assumption Road and approximately 98 meters of frontage on Crowley Line. Although the lands are designated agricultural in the township official plan, no new lot is being created, and therefore it is consistent with provincial policies and conforming to county and Otonabee-South Monaghan's official plan. As a proposal is within calculated required MDS setbacks due to the adjacent livestock facilities, the township zoning bylaw and the MDS guideline document outline specific permissions for existing lots that are lesser than 4 hectares in size, which allows for development of sensitive land uses, being a detached home, within the calculated MDS arcs. And lastly, a rezoning as a condition of consent for the severed parcel will be required as a condition of consent to meet the minimum lot frontage and lot area requirements of the township zoning bylaw. Now, this is an interesting severance application. If there are any questions from council, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ken. It is interesting. This one has been in some way, shape, or form before the township for almost 20 years. It's been a long time. Did Greg have the opportunity to tell you there's an error on the report that needs to be corrected? You mentioned frontage on Providence Line.
Did I mention that in my presentation there? I believe I did make an error in the report, and I should have acknowledged that. I apologize for that.
Just for clarification, I want to make sure that council is aware of the fact that has been corrected. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Questions now to the planner. Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. The MDS one's interesting. So even though it's well within the MDS sphere arc of influence, we'll call it, because it's being added to an existing lot, the MDS is irrelevant, essentially. Is that fair to say?
Yes. So how the applicant is getting the permission to develop here is our zoning bylaw states that if it's an existing lot, lesser than 4 hectares, and existed prior to the zoning bylaw coming into effect, then there's lenience on the MDS arcs. And that is, I don't believe I have in my presentation here, but in the MDS guideline document, it is provided for any municipality within Ontario through their zoning bylaw, they can give those specific permissions. So it's very specific, and the applicant is adhering to that.
Okay. The other question I had is there a particular reason for the lot size that has been proposed here? It seems like a fairly large lot. I mean, we're going to be in excess of 2 acres of agricultural land here that's going to be set aside for this. Is there a particular reason? Is there a geological structure to the lot that needs it to be that big?
So our official plan allows for minor boundary adjustments. Now, what you'd want to consider minor is subjective, and council may not find it to be minor, but it's my opinion, looking at the key map, I'm not sure if anyone's looking at the key map right now, you can see where a septic system is existing to the southwest portion of the benefiting lands. And now there's a lot to the south of the lands to being added onto the benefiting lands. If you change it to make it smaller, it's my opinion that it is being utilized correctly, because if you made the lands to be added smaller, it's going to be a narrow passageway that will not be utilized. And there's that septic system to the edge of the parcel there, which will interfere with agricultural operations as well. So I understand, without even speaking to the applicant, where they're coming from and why they're proposing the lot this way. But it is my opinion that it is a minor lot adjustment, given the existing context of the parcel.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Councilor Powers. Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
I will certainly make a recommendation that we approve it subject to the 3 conditions as listed. And just make a comment. This has come up in the county OP as well, because where you have existing lots, if MDS changes, that should not impede anyone developing that because they are grandfathered in. So I get that through the mayor to Ken, and that was certainly one question that that I was concerned about in our municipality, where we do have, and we're going to have more of these lots taken off as we look at the change from rural to agriculture, to make sure that they can be developed as the application did ask for that. So anyway, I'll make the motion with the 3.
Okay, so the motion was made and it has duly been seconded by, I think I saw Councillor Howie's hand up. Councillor Howie. Any discussion on the motion? I can tell council before I call the vote that when this law was created, the original law was created, MDS did not apply. So it was not a concern. And at that time, it was big enough to be a buildable lot. But since then, the zoning requirements of the township have changed. And that's how the applicants have got stuck with this, and it's taken a long time to resolve it. But I'm glad it can finally be resolved. Anyway, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. Ken, before you leave, Ken Scullion, as council knows, is now a planner for the county of Peterborough. He's gone over to the dark side. As he has appeared here, even though he's on the county payroll, he's appeared here for us. Greg, before Greg signed his release, Greg made him promise he would come back and present these reports tonight to council. Ken, we really want to thank you for doing that. We appreciate you coming back from the county and leading council through these reports. We also want to thank you for your contributions to the township over the last couple of years. You really have been a pleasure to work with. You've worked well with council. You've worked well with our residents. I think you've done a good job. I think that your future in planning is bright. What you're doing is a career move, and we certainly support that for all of our employees. So we wish you well in the future. I know we'll be seeing more of you. And once again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Taylor. And I would like to say it was an absolute pleasure working for your township and your community. I very much enjoy my time in OSM, and it is a very beautiful township that I enjoyed venturing around in my lunch hours and seeing all the sights.
Very good.
So thank you very much, everybody.
We look forward to seeing more of you in the future. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down now in the agenda, we have 15.3, which is site plan applications. And Greg, you've got some, I think you've got a very good explanation or background on this report. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And certainly I wanted to also provide my thanks to Mr. Scullion. So when he announced that he was going to, as you said, go to the dark side, we chained him to his desk for about 10 days and got him to write all these reports. So this is a bit of an anomaly, this council meeting, so we have all these planning items in here. So I have to give him a lot of credit in that particular regard. So, and it goes into this report as well. So under our site plan control bylaw, we receive applications for site plan. And I guess what I wanted to do is sort of bring it forward to us. And our site plan control officer here is Ken Curry. He's with us this evening, so any questions can come to myself, Ken Curry, Ken Scullion. And so what we do, these applications for site plan, they take a long time. And they can take multiple years for us to go through these particular items. So the analogy I used today when I was doing this agenda planning meeting with the mayor, it's kind of like, think of it as in the same way as an annual calendar. So we have 365 days a year. We have 12 months across the year. So every developer provides us with, and in this particular case, the majority of it is with Safe Harbor here. They provide us with a draft plan of subdivision. And the draft plan of subdivision says, this is how we're going to use these individual blocks. So they're large land blocks. So they take the large land parcel, and let's say they create 12 months. And each of the blocks is a month. And so then they go through a process. So so right now we're looking at phase 2-3, which came before council at the last meeting, and which identifies all these blocks. And one of them was the ones we talked about tonight around the commercial block for the self-storage. We talked about one of the blocks, which was going to be for the townhouses. And the requirement here is that for each of those blocks, after they do their their plan of subdivision, they have to register what's called they have to register an M plan. And the M plan is the one that creates the property fabric. So think about in a calendar, you're going to have the month of January, and you have 31 days in the month of January. So that M plan creates 31 lots under that particular analogy. Each of them are given property identification numbers or pins. So then what happens is that they may want to take that block and they may want to subdivide it further. So let's say they take a week, they take 7 days. And in that week, we've got 7 properties across that reduced block, and that's where site plan control comes in. So site plan control takes those particular areas and sort of says, how are each of those 7 properties going to be developed, and how are they, how are the sidewalks going to be in there? How are their driveways going to be there? Those sort of types of things. Or in the case of the self-storage thing, that whole block's going to be developed. And what is the site plan going to look like? What are the size of the buildings? What are the entranceways and roadways are going to be happening? So under our site plan control bylaw, and Ken being the site plan control officer, for minor applications, Ken has the delegated authority to sign them off. But in this particular case, because there's so much activity happening as a result of the Safe Harbor phase 2-3 agreement, which we're waiting to get registered and the securities posted and the draft M plan, we thought it would be a good idea to bring these items to council so that you're aware about what's happening in that sort of site plan control movement. So there is an agreement, we sign an agreement that's registered on title with a site plan. And so that they're in the report, it says that there are 4 site plans. We're only going to deal with 2 of them this evening. I would recommend that because you're not dealing with the zoning at this particular time, that we would defer the bylaw, which is 31, that would deal with the self-storage. But the other 2, to give you an idea, the Block E townhouses. So at the end of Paul Rex Boulevard, where it meets up with Safe Harbor Way, there's an extension of another 6 townhouses that are built along Paul Rex Boulevard. And so again, we have a site plan for those particular 6 townhomes that have to fall in, and there were site plans for the townhomes that have already been constructed. So that's an agreement we need to provide, and site plan control agreement and security that we would be looking for with one of the bylaws this evening. The other one, which was referenced tonight, are these townhomes 1 to 30 on the south side of Safe Harbor Way. So there are 30 townhomes that would be very similar to what were built on Paul Rex Boulevard. And the site plans for those 30 townhomes, again, all of these have been reviewed internally. So building, fire, planning have looked at those, and Ken Scullion was responsible for doing the circulation. But they've also been reviewed by external groups, our engineer, our solicitor, plus the city of Peterborough. So all of these get circulated. Would have provided comments. Orca provides us with comments, and then depending on other agencies, You know, the county also as well provides us comments. If we're in an area where there's let's say access to a rail lines, the rail companies may do that. They provide us with comments. So all of this work's been done. And so we wanted to be able to explain, and if council has any questions about the site plan application 2021-03, which is the block E townhouses, that is for the 6 townhomes, and the site plan application 2021-007, which is the 30 townhomes along Safe Harbor Way. And so if council has any questions, the agreements are attached in the bylaw section, but we thought it would be a good practice from a transparency perspective to have a conversation about these site plans related to Safe Harbor for these particular ones. At the June 20 meeting, we'll have the site plan application for phase 2D for Belmere. We were just waiting for the security calculations to come in. And so council would have seen phases 2A, B, C, and phase 1 in the past. So phase 2D is the last phase. So that will come on the 20th of June. So if council has any questions, I'd be certainly pleased, or myself or Ken Curry would be certainly pleased to answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, see a couple of hands up. Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, thank you. And through the mayor, I really don't have any questions. It's nice to see these developments moving forward and getting this, as we heard from the residents, I think they're getting fed up with all the traffic related to the developments. The 30 ones are in reference to the 100 meters away from this proposed storage facility. So basically directly east of it. And then the other ones are to what direction from that storage proposed facility, Greg?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, through the deputy mayor. So if you come into Paul Rex Boulevard right now and you see those towns and they're on the south side, it would be an extension of those existing towns to the east until it gets to the new junction of Safe Harbor Way. There's 6 towns at the end of that row that are covered by that second site plan.
Okay, thank you for that. Just, I don't know if it's possible, but a map for we people that are a little challenged along that would help.
We can certainly send one.
I know where they are now, Greg. You've done great. I'm just thinking for future that may help, especially me, maybe other people, but okay, thank you.
Yeah, geographically, it's actually quite a piece away from the proposed storage facility site.
This one is,
yeah. Okay, Councillor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Just clarification through the mayor. The 30 is within 100 meters, but the proposed 6 is far away.
Yeah, they would be within that 200 meters.
Just for clarification, the first unit of the 30 would be the 100 meters, but then they get progressively further as they move east, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Councilor Powers, go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Just out of curiosity with these, obviously we don't have the specific plans per se that are associated with the site plan agreement that are referenced in here, and rightly so. I'm not going to be able to understand the roof plan for block 1, 2, or whatever it happens to be, or whether that's appropriate. What I am concerned about is protections that are contained within the agreement to protect the municipality. I'm thinking security and or otherwise. And at the same time, protections within the agreement for any changes that the developer may want to include in these site plan areas moving forward. So if you could help me understand how those two are met within this agreement, that would be helpful.
Sure, I can start and maybe Ken, you can jump in. So as far as security, so what has to happen is that the phase 2-3 agreement needs to be registered. That came to council there about 3 weeks ago. And the security portion of that right now is about $900,000, $1 million, that 1.1 million. And I think it'll be reduced because they've done some additional work. So that will deal with the road surfaces and those sort of types of things, sewer, water. Securities for these townhomes are going to be around $2,000 a piece, and that's to make sure that the grading is done properly. And that in our phase 2-3 agreement, there is also paving of driveway aprons, right? So there's a lot of security that will be posted related to that, so that folks don't get saddled with unfinished, whether they be driveways or if there's retaining walls in some cases and that sort of type of stuff for landscaping, but they don't get stuck with that. As far as changes to site plans, they have to go through the formal application process if they're going to make any changes and adjustments. So, and Ken's been involved with us, both Ken and Kent. I see Kent is back here. What we've done is that it's a negotiating process, and we've over the last, but to give you an idea on these townhomes, you know, the original approvals for the subdivision was 2011. So we're just getting into the phase 2-3 subdivision. So I do know that there's been at least 4 or 5 submissions and resubmissions that have been reviewed by all of our subject matter experts, including our engineers, to get to the point where we are now. So as I said, it's taken us years and years and years. So Ken Curry, I think this is before Greg, it's before Ken Curry, but you guys have dealt with this for a long time. So Ken, I'll let you add any comments to that. You're on mute there, Ken.
Ken, you're on mute, but I'm gathering you have nothing to add anyway. Is that correct?
Sorry about that. Greg's covered all of it. There's not much sense in me reiterating the thing. In answer to the question about plans, the townhouses in there are all exactly the same blocks. They just keep repeating them. So if you really needed to see them, I'm sure there's a set in the office there somewhere. It's before my time, but it'll be there somewhere.
Okay.
Just sorry, Mayor Taylor, just a follow-up, real quick follow-up question. Are there any changes just related to Ken's comment there? Are there any changes that are being proposed with either the townhouses or the new block of, I guess, the executive townhomes that are addressing previous concerns that maybe residents had with any issues in that subdivision? I'm just curious if I'm just curious because I'm thinking parking, you know, roadway access, things of that nature that have come up over the years. Have there been any changes since the initial plan was proposed related to these particular items in this subdivision versus what is in this new agreement?
I'm not sure that there's anything in the way of parking or disruption or anything else. It's in a site plan agreement because that's not what we're dealing with. The complaints that we get, by and large, most of them are just people being upset. There's not always a lot of validity in some of it. You're going to get that in any subdivision that's under construction. And I can't imagine that somebody bought a house and they're thinking that construction was going to stop just because they bought a finished home. But again, I don't know that you could cover any of that off in a subdivision agreement because it's almost impossible to police. And in our experience so far, the people that are complaining about what's going on out there, it's actually other neighbors with their cars and stuff parked out in the street because they don't have enough room in their driveways for the other 3, 4, or 5 cars they have.
So yeah, those are in support of what Ken is saying is, you know, these townhomes, I think, Ken, they're on 35-foot wide lots.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that the only place that you can build the house in these type and style of houses is only one place because there's only 3 feet on each side to the property line. So there's enough room in here to park 1 car in the driveway and 1 car in the garage. And so those are all been designed in the same fashion, and that's the style of homes that are going to be that have been being built in there and are going to continue to be built along those townhomes. So if that answers your question, Nick, I'm not sure what it will do, but it'll add more congestion in that particular subdivision and And that was known when we did the draft plan of subdivision from phases 1A and 1B.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make-
I didn't expect that there was going to be any changes. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
I'll
Okay,
make
thanks.
a comment. If you're going to park a car in the garage of these townhouses, it better be a small car because they motorcycle be better. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
And to that point, through the mayor, we are both aware, Joe, of possibly if we get into another subdivision and looking at a little more depth and actual fact, everybody, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of the residents are using their garages because they are so small for storage. And consequently, it takes 1.5 cars when you're sitting on top of the sidewalk and your other car sticking out over the end. And we've had many complaints. So just note to when we look at other subdivisions to make sure that we can actually put 2 cars outside of the garage, not 1.5, and impede on our sidewalks for safety, because that's a lot of complaints that I remember, Joe, you and I were up there talking to residents and we seen that and we just need to learn from our lessons, I guess.
Okay, so any other questions to Greg on this? What Greg's looking for, I believe, is a motion just to receive the report and that the following site plan control areas be referred to the bylaw section. And that would be site plan application 2021-03 and 2021-007. We will be removing site plan application 2021-006 due to decisions made during our public meeting.
And then, Mr. Mayor, the third one is going to be that the 2021-04 is going to be will be heard on June the 20th.
So did you want that contained in the motion?
Just you can defer the two. You can defer the 2 ones so that you're going to defer the bylaws too.
We'll defer the bylaw dealing with self-storage and Belmere.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So is council clear on that? Councilor Powers, you want to make that motion? Thumbs up. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Clark seconded it. Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we will now move to the bylaw section, and I want to make sure that I've got this right. So we can approve, I can ask for a motion that bylaws 2022-30, 32, 33, 34, 35 be read a first time. I've removed those 2 bylaws. Is that correct? Just want to get confirmation on that. That is correct. Okay. Do I have anyone willing to move that to be read a first time? Councillor Howie, Councillor Powers. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Could I get a motion, please, that bylaws 2022-30, 32, 33, 34, 35 be read a second and third time, signed, sealed, and the corporate seal attached? Councillor Allen and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't ask the clerk to review the bylaws. Excuse me. Heather, would you please review the bylaws?
Bylaw 2022-30 is your council, your confirming bylaw for May 2nd and 16th meetings. Bylaw 2022-32 is your planning agreement site plan for the executive towns that you heard earlier. 2022-33 is the planning agreement, your site plan for the 6 row house dwellings in Safe Harbor. 2022-34 is the planning, the zoning bylaw amendment that heard earlier this evening for Lafreniere. 2022-35 is your planning, your zoning bylaw amendment that again you heard earlier this evening for GIC.
Thank you, Heather. Now that they're being clearly explained. Can I get a motion that bylaws 20, those bylaws be read second, third time and signed, sealed, and the corporate seal attached? I think we already had Councillor Allen and Deputy Mayor Clark on that, right? Okay, so we're going to call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Okay, moving down now to correspondence. The first one is library story walk. Now, as has been confirmed, the library doesn't really need council's permission to do this, but they asked for it out of courtesy. So, Mark, did you want to speak to this at all?
Just on mute. Yeah, I can. It's a program that was had some success, and it's been much enjoyed by some of our residents and folks in our communities. And I think that the library would like to continue on with this and are working towards more story walks in the future. So
very good. So would I take it that you'd be willing to make the move the motion to approve this? And Deputy Mayor, you have your hand up?
I would second it, Mayor Taylor, but just also a letter of appreciation because they were accepted for 2 versus 1. So I think we should acknowledge that in a thank you letter to go out to the board for Mark to deliver that.
Okay, we'll so the motion will include staff to write a letter of appreciation to the library board for this initiative, and I'll be happy to sign it and we'll send it on to the board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All in favor of that motion? Thank you. Okay, City of Brantford, letter to FCM and AMO about the release of federal and provincial documents. What's council's pleasure? Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Letter of support.
Deputy Mayor has moved to support that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Powers. Discussion on the motion? Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. The municipality of Shania. How do you say that, Greg?
Shuna.
Okay. It's up near Thunder Bay. What's council's pleasure on that one? Deputy Mayor?
Receive.
Receive. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Allen has moved to receive that. Discussion on the motion? Call the vote. All in favor? That is received. Thank you. District of Muskoka, exemption from the annual emergency exercise council. I can tell you, we've been asking for this.
Yeah.
However, no success. Deputy Mayor, which is?
And to that point, to support.
Move to support. Councillor Howie is seconded. Discussion? I certainly agree with this one. Go ahead. Hands up as call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Nick, did you have a comment or you just all in favor?
Well, I was just going to mention, I believe we are doing an exercise, if I'm not mistaken.
We are.
In a few months.
In
Yeah.
no, in
weeks. Yeah, next week, right?
Yeah. June 17th, I think. Okay. There's nothing under the information package. Nothing under other matters. Deputy Mayor, you have something?
Yes, if I could, just to acknowledge, we have a young gentleman in our midst, Liam Doris, Carolyn and Peter Doris's son, and he has won $100,000 scholarship. There's only about, I believe about 100 given across Canada. Anyway, I'll just read a bit. He was awarded the prestigious Schulich Leadership Scholarship for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, valued at $100,000 to pursue an engineering degree at Queen's University. He is interested in STEM-based approach for food production. He realizes that farmland is getting fewer and far between. And so therefore, he states growing up in a small family farm has given me a deeper understanding of where our food comes from and the work that goes into it. With an ever expanding population and cities, he's looking at trying to make this opportunity change and help put people food on people's tables. So I think that it's just huge. So anyway.
What I would appreciate you doing is forwarding that information to the clerk.
Yeah.
And ask the clerk, the clerk, our office staff do up these awesome certificates of appreciation or congratulations or something.
Yeah.
Like that. we can do up a certificate, Heather, that would be appropriate for this. And it'll be signed and mailed to Liam.
Okay, very good. Do
Councilor
you want a
Allen, do you have
motion? A motion to that?
Don't need a motion. to that effect, no. Just direction is fine. Councilor Allen, do you have something under other matters?
I just a question actually, and I wonder about Canada Day, and maybe I missed something along the road here, but I was wondering if there was a decision made on that.
I'll ask staff. We talked about that at our last meeting, and the fire department is who runs that.
Right.
And at that time, they had not made a decision. It was not looking like they were planning to move forward with it. Greg, do you know of anything?
I believe Heather has an update for that.
Okay.
My understanding is we will be going forward with it. I don't have any details as of yet. I'm waiting, and hopefully there'll be something out tomorrow. It will be posted on our website as soon as
Okay.
we
Good. Yeah, it certainly is getting close to the date. So that would be good if they're going to move forward with it, get the information out there. What I would ask council, though, when we get to other matters, if you have something, if you would advise the clerk in advance, she can actually post it on the agenda, that it'll be something that will be discussed, and usually by whom, and then the public will know, and staff is prepared for it if they need be. So if it's a last minute thing, we can deal with it, no problem. But if you can provide notice of it in advance that you would like to bring something up on our other matters, I know it's appreciated. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, and to that point, I did not become aware of this until the weekend, but certainly for future, make that point, I certainly will. So the other thing is, are we considering meeting in person again? I know that the health unit, we are meeting in person. Actually on Wednesday, we usually have a light lunch there. That's not being offered, but we are meeting in person. Where are we at on that? We're now in June.
So I think, Greg, I'll turn it over to you, because I know our next meeting, we have a public meeting planned, and it's, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I was gonna get in touch with council. So our plan for the 20th of June is that we were looking to have an in-person council meeting. And one of the things that is going to be on the agenda for that is there will be a public meeting prior to the regular meeting. And the public meeting will be for the second public meeting to have Mr. Randall do an update to council on the organics facility. So there'll be a second statutory public meeting on the 20th at 6 p.m. So we've said that those notices have been sent out to the neighboring landowners at the end of last week. Right?
And it will be in person.
It will be in person.
Okay, June 20th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, council, that brings us right down to number 22. After 2 hours, 15 minutes, Councilor Allen has already moved the motion, and Councilor Powers has seconded it. We are adjourned. Thanks very much, staff. Thank you, council. As I said, that meeting